When you think about spiritual possession, your mind probably goes straight to Hollywood, right?
Oh, absolutely.
To The Exorcist, The Conjuring, all these dark, very Christian-centric dramas we've all seen.
It's a world of crucifixes, Latin chants, holy water. We're just, we're very accustomed to specific Western theological conflict.
And that framework, while it's great for movies, it really blinds us to how this whole concept of spiritual affliction is understood across the rest of the world.
It does. I mean, for most Westerners, their exposure to the spiritual entities of the Islamic world is, well, it's pretty much restricted to the pop culture caricature of the genie.
The one that grants 3 wishes.
Exactly.
And that image from Aladdin just completely misses the mark. It fails to convey the true depth and complexity of the jinn.
Mm-hmm.
So our deep dive today is designed to take us behind that veil, past all those pop culture tropes, and into the authentic and often frightening world of jinn possession.
Known as SAR or Mass.
Right. And we're going to look at the deep theological disputes and the rigorous, centuries-old practice of exorcism, or Ruqyah.
To really understand the affliction, you have to first understand the afflictor. And jinn are not ghosts, nor are they simply demons.
They're their own thing.
They are a distinct type of sentient being established directly in the Qur'an. So they're placed firmly within the core of Islamic cosmology. The crucial foundational detail here is their origin.
Okay.
They were created from smokeless fire.
Which sets them apart from the other major forms of life, right? Angels were created from light, humans from clay.
Exactly. Jinn occupy this third fiery realm. And this origin gives them unique qualities.
Like being invisible.
Usually, yes. They exist in a realm just outside our immediate perception, but the sources are clear that they can become corporeal, they can interact with us, and, well, even interbreed with humans.
Wow.
And critically, we have to correct that common misconception that they're inherently evil.
I find this point fascinating because culturally they seem overwhelmingly associated with malevolence.
That's the cultural filter. But theologically, jinn are described as morally neutral, kind of like the ancient Greek daimonion. They have free will, societies, families, their own faiths.
So you can have Muslim jinn, Christian jinn.
You can have Muslim jinn, Christian jinn, Jewish jinn. They can be friendly or they can be dangerous. They're capable of good and evil, just like humans.
But the term jinn does act as a sort of umbrella for some truly terrifying creatures, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Under that umbrella, you find specific malevolent figures, a kind of hierarchy of evil.
For instance?
The massive rebellious Ifrits, the powerful, often maritime Marid, and the ghoul, which we might associate with, ghastly graveyard-dwelling entities.
Okay.
And here is where the theology diverges really sharply from Western ideas. Iblis, or Satan, is identified in Islamic theology not as a fallen angel,
but as a jinn.
That's
a huge distinction. If Iblis is a jinn created from fire and possessing free will, how does that change the fundamental nature of evil compared to the Western idea of a fallen angel?
Well, it connects the source of ultimate evil directly back to the jinn species. It reinforces their potential for malevolence and lends a lot of cultural weight to their darkest aspects.
I see.
Because they share free will with humanity, they also share the capacity for that radical disobedience.
Yeah.
And on top of that, jinn become a convenient cultural repository for other older spiritual fears.
How so?
The sources tell us that polytheist gods that humans mistakenly worshipped were often just powerful jinn posing as deities.
So these fireborn beings are everywhere. They're woven into the fabric of the human world. It's no surprise, then, that the concept of jinn possession is so deeply rooted in the language itself.
It is linguistic bedrock. I mean, the Arabic word for a crazy person, a madman, a majnun, literally translates to possessed by a jinn.
Literally.
Literally. Just think about that for a moment. To call someone insane is to assert they are under the control of one of these spirits. The epic romance, Layla and Majnun, is about Layla and Jachnay.
That's incredible. It shows the deep historic connection between what we'd call spiritual affliction and psychological distress.
Exactly.
But here's where it gets really interesting for me. This belief, it isn't uniformly accepted across the Islamic scholarly tradition, is it?
Not at all. The reality of possession has been a hotly contested issue for centuries.
So this wasn't just a folk belief.
No, this was a high-level academic debate. On the pro-possession side, you have the incredibly influential 14th century jurist Ibn Taymiyyah.
A founding figure of Salafism.
Right, and he argued definitively that the existence of jinn and their ability to penetrate and possess the human body is an established fact, supported by scripture and the consensus of early Sunni scholars.
And he offered some strikingly physical evidence for this diagnosis, I remember reading.
He described the jinn entering a person who is then seized by fits and who starts speaking incomprehensible words. But the most memorable detail is his assertion that a possessed person might not even feel a blow hard enough to kill a camel.
A blow hard enough to kill a camel.
Yeah. The jinn, he argued, was absorbing the pain, insulating the body.
That is a dramatic sign for diagnosis. But countering this incredibly dissonant view, you have equally major scholars arguing the complete opposite.
Absolutely. We have to look at someone like Ibn Hazm, for example, who just flatly denied possession.
He dismissed it entirely.
Totally. Called it superstition and clear insanity. He claimed that only people with the weak minds of the elderly would believe that the devil could genuinely speak through someone's tongue.
So there is this real tension between physical and spiritual explanations for these afflictions, even in the most orthodox traditions.
A huge tension. But regardless of the high-level debate, the popular cultural opinion that possession happens and is responsible for symptoms we might see as mental disorders has clearly prevailed.
Which brings us to the next logical question. What draws these entities in? It can't be random. What are the common causes of possession?
Well, the fear surrounding the jinn often stems from their unpredictability. But you're right, their interactions are frequently triggered by human actions. We can sort of categorize the causes into three main areas.
Sure.
First, there are occult practices. So curses laid by an enemy, or rituals involving jinn that have inadvertently backfired on the person doing them.
So if you try to control them through magic, you risk becoming their victim.
Precisely. This fear is crystallized in books associated with, let's say, dubious occult practices. There's the notorious Shams al-Marath, the son of Gnosis.
Right.
And the belief is that simply owning or even glancing at pages of this forbidden text is enough to invite jinn into your life. It's the ultimate forbidden library item.
That really elevates the stakes for intellectual curiosity. What's the second major cause?
Retaliation. Or revenge.
Yeah.
You have to remember, jinn have personalities and emotions, and they don't always forgive accidental slights.
There's a story about that, isn't there?
The classic example comes from 1001 Nights. It's the story of the merchant and the jinn. A merchant is eating dates. He carelessly tosses a date seed and accidentally kills the son of a powerful ifrit.
Oh.
So the ifrit, filled with this righteous rage, demands the merchant's life as retribution. It highlights that even a minor, unintentional human act can provoke a devastating supernatural response.
It grounds their immense power in surprisingly domestic and petty grudges. And the third cause involves an intense feeling.
Lust?
Yes. Jinn are capable of feeling intense desire for humans, which can lead to sexual relations and even, some sources say, intermarriage.
Really?
The famous theologian al-Ash'ari recorded that some scholars debated this, citing a reference in the Qur'an about Satan making jinn partners in wealth and offspring.
And this usually involves female jinn targeting human men.
Often, yes. Like the named case studies we find in regional lore who target men out of pure passion.
Speaking of which, these specific entities really bring the cultural context to life. Tell us about Aisha Khandisha. Aisha Khandisha is a very specific, very frightening jinn, especially known in Moroccan lore. She is the epitome of the lust-driven possessor.
How does she appear?
She usually takes the form of a stunningly beautiful human woman. She lures men, seduces them, and then either consumes them or, more commonly, possesses them.
And what happens to the men?
The men afflicted by her are often left psychologically wrecked. They lose all interest in human women. They suffer severe physical and mental ailments. She's a true demonic siren.
Wow. And you mentioned a different kind of possessor that targets women and children, the owl.
That would be the owl, primarily from Central Asian and Kurdish lore, and it links back to ancient Mesopotamian creatures. The owl is known for specifically targeting women, particularly pregnant women, and is believed to steal fetuses or newborn babies.
And the way they possess is equally terrifying, happening in, everyday locations.
Very much so. Often in a public bathhouse.
How does that play out?
So, a woman may be alone in the bathhouse, perhaps feeling a bit sad or melancholic. She encounters another woman who seems lonely, and they start chatting. This second woman, the owl, offers to wash the victim's back, a common social ritual.
A sign of trust.
Exactly. But during this intimate contact, the owl reveals its true, horrific nature and drives the victim insane. Women affected are often referred to as jinnzada.
Offspring of the jinn.
Offspring of the jinn in places like Iran and Kurdistan.
So the symptoms are wide-ranging. We've got fits, personality changes, depression, speaking in a changed voice or a foreign language, all these emotional extremes. If the symptoms overlap so much with mental illness, what's the definitive sign used historically to confirm possession?
The diagnostic marker is almost always religious observance. If a person suddenly exhibits profound negative reactions to sacred rites, shrinking from the recitation of the Qur'an, screaming during the call to prayer, or just suddenly abandoning all religious duties, that is often viewed as the definitive indicator.
That the affliction is spiritual, not purely physical. So once that determination is made, how do they get the jinn out? What does the cure, the ruqyah, look like?
The techniques for exorcism, or ruqyah, they fall into two broad and often competing traditions. One is the older occult tradition involving talismans.
And the other?
The other is the religiously sanctioned tradition focusing purely on the power of Scripture.
Let's start with the talismans, the tawiz. What makes them powerful?
A tawiz can be anything: a pendant, a bronze bowl, a small folded piece of paper, and it derives its power from what's written on it.
Such as?
These writings are considered potent sources of spiritual energy. The names of God, like Al-Malik, names of powerful angels, Jibril or Mikael, or specific prophets like Solomon, who held power over the jinn, and of course verses from the Quran.
Especially protective chapters, I imagine.
Absolutely, like the Shahada or Ayat al-Kursi. These are all written down.
And these are often criticized today, aren't they?
They are. While very popular, worn as amulets, hung over beds, or even burned so the fumes can be inhaled, many contemporary scholars criticize these occult methods as being outside authentic Islamic practice. They see it as heretical sorcery.
So the orthodox, or safe, alternative is purely Qur'anic recitation. Walk us through that process. What are the steps of ruqyah?
The legitimate approach involves using the pure power of the Scripture. The exorcist starts by reciting powerful verses like Al-Fatiha or Al-Falaq, which specifically asks for refuge from evil over two things:
Okay, what are they?
water for the patient to drink and olive oil to rub on their aching joints or forehead.
That seems like a sort of holistic preparation. What follows is the confrontation, right?
Yes. The next step is establishing communication with the jinn. The exorcist demands to know the entity's name and the specific reason for the possession.
Is it revenge? Is it a curse?
Is it simply lust? This opens the path to negotiation.
So it's not just casting it out, but a structured process of interrogation and admonition.
Precisely. They try to admonish or scold or persuade the jinn to leave peacefully. If the jinn refuses, the pressure is increased.
Oh.
It's tortured with further, more aggressive recitation and commanded to leave with a binding oath never to return. And this brings us to the most confrontational and controversial aspect.
The use of beating.
The use of beating, yes, as described by Ibn Taymiyyah.
But how is that justified?
The sources are very specific. The beating is administered only when the human personality is considered unconscious, under the total sway of the possessing entity. The purpose isn't to harm the patient.
But to inflict pain directly on the possessing jinn.
Exactly. To compel it to flee the host. It's a method of last resort to torture the spirit inside.
That's a physically vivid component of the ritual. And we also noted some unique approaches, like the czar tradition.
Right. In places like Egypt and Ethiopia, the czar ceremony is fundamentally different. It's not about violent expulsion. It often involves fasting, then intense rhythmic music and dance intended to placate or appease the possessing spirits.
So negotiating a peaceful coexistence rather than demanding departure.
Right. It shows the incredible diversity in how possession is managed across the region.
This has been an incredibly detailed look at a subject that is, I think, usually oversimplified in the West. We've unpacked the complex nature of the jinn.
Created from smokeless fire, often morally neutral but culturally associated with great evil.
And we saw the critical theological role that Iblis plays as one of their kind.
We also covered the foundational nature of possession reflected in the very word majnun, and explored that dramatic fault line in scholarship, contrasting the conviction of Ibn Taymiyyah with the skepticism of Ibn Hazm.
And finally, we detailed the triggers, from accidental revenge over a date pit to intense spiritual lust, and the diverse cures, from criticized talismans to the rigorous steps of the Quranic exorcism, ruqyah. And what's consistently apparent across all these sources is how frequently the described symptoms of jinn possession, the mood shifts, the epileptic fits, the incomprehensible words map directly onto conditions that modern science would label as mental disorders.
And this raises a powerful question for you, the learner, to carry forward.
Which is?
If the interpretation of a disease is based entirely on cultural and theological context, what happens when two cultures define the line between spiritual affliction and psychological ailment in fundamentally different ways?
Does the cure change if you call the possessor a jinn or a neurotransmitter imbalance?
Exactly. It's a question that challenges the core of how we define both sickness and healing across the globe.